So good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Kevin. I am the independent living specialist at Lighthouse for the Blind, and I wanted to share with you today just some things that you can do with Braille that can help you in your everyday life to help you be more independent. Now, with Braille, I don't know how many of you out there know Braille. I think I have a feeling that there may be a couple of folks out there who've probably been reading Braille for a while. But there may be some folks out there who aren't as familiar with Braille. And so let me just kind of give you a really quick foundation, okay, before we go any further. Now, Braille is it's a code, it's a tactile code that we use to translate print into a tactile medium, which again we call Braille. Now, some of you out there may have seen Braille out in public, right? Have you guys out there encountered Braille out in public? Some of you may not know Braille as well. Well, you may have encountered it when you were out in a restaurant. Maybe there was a men and women's restroom sign, or maybe there was an elevator panel in an elevator that had some raised dots next to the buttons. So sometimes you'll encounter it when you're out in the community, when you're out and just out and about. So let me just explain to you what Braille is. So I started off a moment ago explaining it, but let me get a little bit more specific. So Braille is made up of essentially 6 dots. Now what I have here is I got an egg carton here in front of me, okay? I have an egg carton here in front of me, and this egg carton has numbers on it. It's essentially numbered 1 through 6. So on the left side, we've got 1, 2, 3, and on the right side, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and I just use this egg carton as an illustration. It's something that's around the house, and it can be easily accessible for a lot of folks, because a lot of folks, well, you know, you may be eating eggs and have a carton that you're about to throw out. And before you do that, and maybe, you know, if you're one of those people who's learning Braille for the first time, something like this could be a helpful tool to illustrate the idea. Now, again, going back to the Braille itself, not unlike this carton, it is arranged into 6 dots, 2 columns, 3 dots per column. So again, on the left, you got 1, 2, 3, and on the right, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now, if we were to, let's say, make a letter,
like pull it back just a little from the camera, more towards you. Now down. Okay. Perfect. Now.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So again, we've got dots 1, 2, 3, numbered here, large print, 4, 5, 6. And let's say if we were to make a letter, we would, let's make a letter A. So if it's an A, it's going to be dot 1, the top left dot in the top left corner, what we call the Braille cell, the 6 dot arrangement. Okay. Now, with that, we would actually we would subtract dots 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from the cell, leaving only dot 1 representing the letter A. Okay. Let's see. If we've got the letter B is going to be dots 1 and 2 in the cell, in the first column of the cell on the left. Now, 3, 4, 5, 6 would be subtracted from the cell, leaving you only with dots 1 and 2, the letter B. Okay. We'll do 1 or 2 more examples. Okay. Now, let's see. Well, what comes after B? C, right? So C is, it's quite different. When I was learning Braille years ago, I thought I'd be a smarty pants, and when I was trying to anticipate what dots would come next, I was thinking, well, so if A is 1, B is 1 and 2, well, C must be 1, 2, and 3, right? And then I was thinking, of course, you add a dot with each letter. If that's true, then you only be able to make 6 letters. You could get to F maybe. So C is very different. C has dots 1 and 4. Okay, 1 and 4. All right, and again, 2, 3, 5, 6 are subtracted from the cell, from the 6 dot arrangement. Okay, we'll do one more. So so A, B, C, D. Okay, D is very similar to C. So C is 1 and 4, but we're going to add a dot 5. Okay. So that makes D 1, 4, 5. Okay. All right, and so we can use different configurations of the 6 dot arrangement to create all the letters and characters of the Braille code. Okay. All right. Put that aside for a moment. Any questions about that so far? Any questions? All right. Now, for general purposes, there are 2 forms of Braille. There is what we call grade 1 Braille or uncontracted Braille. And basically that is a letter for letter, a straight translation from print into Braille. So in other words, what you see in print is what you would experience in Braille, letter for letter, character for character, for the most part. The other form of Braille is what we call grade 2 contracted Braille, okay? And contracted Braille is, for those of you who write, it's probably the best comparison is that it's like shorthand, okay? Shorthand. And in shorthand, what you do is you take words and you abbreviate them. So that way you write them more quickly and it takes up less space, which is the benefit of grade 2 is there's a whole specific set of contractions that are in no way analogous to print, okay? And that's what a lot of folks who have been reading Braille for a while read, okay? So that's just a couple of quick points. But the reason why you're here today is to learn maybe some things that you can do with Braille that can help you in your daily life. You know, we often say this, you often hear me repeat this about some things, but it's still true. You don't have to know everything about Braille for Braille to be helpful, okay? So if you're somebody out there and you're on the fence and like, man, I don't know if I should learn this Braille. It looks really hard and oh my gosh, and you have all these contractions and all these rules. Well, you don't have to go for the goal. You can just maybe learn enough to to know the alphabet, right? I guess if you know the alphabet, then that could help with some of the things that I'm going to discuss here in a moment. All right, just keep that in mind. Now, what we're going to talk about today is how do we use Braille in our daily lives to help us be more independent, okay? And so I'm going to show you a few things. It's not a lot, but it's a few things that I've picked up over the years, okay? Boy, where should I begin? I have so many things here in front of me. Okay. So why don't we talk a little bit about labeling, okay? Labeling things with Braille. Now, when it comes to Braille, there are different ways to do it. Some of you out there may already be familiar with a few things. There's the old Dymo Brailler where you you have a handle and you hold it and you turn it and it goes, makes that clicking noise, right? I don't have one of those. That's probably not the best impression of one, but I think you guys get the point. And you have to line up the Braille with the letter in print, and then click the button to imprint it. All right, I don't use that. For the most part, I just don't. But I will show you what I do use, okay? So what I use is, I have here a slate. And this may not be the most popular item for some people. This is what they used to use to make Braille back when Moses was alive. You, you had to do a lot of chiseling, but I do find them helpful because I have here inside the slate one of the cells on either side. And again, for those of you who don't know what a slate and stylus is, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. It's a Braille writing tool where it opens it up kind of like an alligator's mouth. You put Braille paper inside of it, and then you close it like such. You close it, and then there are cells, little Braille cells, little 6-dot cells that somebody who could write in with using Braille. And it usually worked with a little stylus, which I don't think I have one here. I had one a moment ago, but you use that to imprint onto the Braille. And what I did is I took some of this tape, this Dymo tape, and I weaved it into the slate, okay? And then with the point of the stylus, I can imprint onto this tape a message or a letter, and then eventually I can then take that and peel it off and then attach it to something that's of significance in my home. Okay, any questions so far? Any questions?
Hey, Shawn, will you remind everybody the keystrokes to raise their hand, please?
Thank you, Rebecca.
Or Kevin, do you remember them?
Yes, I do. Okay, so to raise your hand, thanks, Rebecca, that's a good point. So to raise your hand, if you're on a phone, it's going to be *9. And if you're on a computer and you're using a screen reader, it's going to be Alt-Y.
And if you want to mute or unmute yourself, we'll generally handle that, but it is *6 on the phone to mute and unmute.
Okay. And again, and here is the point of the stylus. It's a small needle-like puncher that you can use to imprint onto things what they are, especially if you're using the Braille tape along with a slate for writing out things, okay? Any questions about that? I'm gonna move on here, okay? Now, I'll show you my other favorite technique here is the old, what's called a Perkins Brailler. Some of you in here might be familiar with a Perkins Brailler. Anybody in here familiar with a Perkins Brailler? I know a couple of you out there probably have seen one of these before.
I'm very familiar with that. I used to carry that around back when I was about 10 years old.
I know, right? It's quite heavy. I think you could do like dumbbell curls with it, you know. So you can get it to shape while you're brailing.
For sure.
And this is pretty sturdy too, which is, I prefer the older model because it is sturdier. The newer ones are a little bit more delicate, whereas the older Perkins, I think they're made of better stuff. You could throw this thing off top of a building and I think it would hurt the ground. So the Perkins Brailler, for those of you who don't know, it's like an old-timey typewriter, okay? And what you would do is you would take paper and you would feed it into the top of this. And here at the top, I don't know if anybody can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to turn it around so you guys can get a better view of it. Okay. It has a part back here that you would use to load a piece of paper into, and you would roll it in towards you. And here on the front, we have some keys that we would use to create Braille onto a piece of paper, okay? So let's go back to that 6-dot cell for a minute, okay? As I was discussing, you have a 6-dot cell. Let's see. Rebecca, am I in view?
Yes, you are. Yeah,
Right, so,
you're on top of the Brailler, but I can see the egg cartons.
okay. So again, let's go over the 6-dot cell just briefly. We have dots 1, 2, 3 in the left column, dots 4, 5, 6 in the right column. And on the Perkins Brailler, we have something similar in that you can create letters for the Braille alphabet by way of pressing on these keys in the front. So there's a paddle here in the center. That's basically your spaces over. And then here is dot 1, 2, 3 on the right, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now I show you all this. I go through all this just simply to show you that there is a tool that I use called it's called a Braille tape holder. It's very descriptive. It's not a fancy name, but it's very descriptive. And so what it does is that it holds a piece of Dymo tape in place. Okay, hold a piece of Dymo tape in place. Here on the very top, there are clips to which you can pull in a piece of tape, Dymo tape, and you can thread it through. And I want to see if I have some Dymo tape. I should have some over here hiding out in my little work area here. Sorry, guys, it's a lot of moving parts here. But with this tape holder, what it does, what you can do is take it. I'm going to spin this Perkins Brailler around, and I'm going to take the tape holder and I'm going to attach it up here to the very top of the Perkins Brailler. Right here at the very top. It actually slots right in. And then I'll hit the lock lever, return, and if I have a piece of Dymo tape in the tape holder, I can literally type onto the tape what something is. And then you could take it off, cut it, and attach it to particular items in the home, okay? Again, this is a Braille tape holder. And what we'll do is, we'll have Miss Rebecca email you guys a link to where to find this particular item. I really enjoy it. It really made labeling a lot easier for me. Okay, I'm going to put this aside here for a moment.
Kevin.
While you're
Yes.
picking up a question.
I was just going to mention you could get a full page of the Dymo tape as well. It's not really a tape; it's like a full page that you can Braille on as well.
Nice.
Tracy, go ahead with your question.
Yes, I was confused with that tape holder.
Huh?
I just have the long thing that you did the voice imitation for earlier for the tape to go in.
Right.
But if you put it on your Brailler, which I have a Brailler, is it a separate piece that?
Yes, it's a separate piece. So let me see if I can provide you with a description that would make it easier to understand. Okay, so when you're handling your Perkins Brailler, at the very top, there is an area up there where you load the paper into.
Yes.
Well, with the tape holder, it is like a flat piece of metal, that actually slots into the very top of the Perkins and lays flat.
Huh.
Almost like you're loading it into the Perkins,
Okay.
but not quite, because it is metal. Then what you do is you clamp the levers forward to lock it in place.
Yep.
And if you have tape that's loaded, that it's threaded through, because what it does, Tracy, is on either side of the tape holder are two little tabs that you can put the tape underneath. And so it'll hold it in place, and then you can type onto the tape.
Okay.
What something is. It's
cool.
much faster than the old,
Yes. Yes.
Right. And that's kind of cumbersome. Okay. All right. So good. Any questions so far? I'm going to move on. I'm going to show you some examples of some things that I use Braille for in the home. Okay. All right. So spices. In the home, we all have pantries for the most part, and we have spices. We have a whole miscellaneous number of things, right, in our area. So what I have here is a piece of Braille tape that I have put onto one of my spices, and I have a O and an S, and that stands for onion salt. And it's, for those of you who can see, I have the label right there. Okay, onion salt. All right, and again, keep in mind, you don't have to know everything about Braille for it to be useful. If you had just the alphabet under your belt, you would still be able to, read letters individually, and so you come up with your own system. So again, I've got, this is onion salt. I mean, I could have written out onion salt in Braille and slapped it on the side of this, but that just, that's a little time consuming and unnecessary. So you can abbreviate things more or less. Okay. So I'm sure some of you folks out there have makeup products and you're not able to see what they are. Well, again, what you could use, I don't use it because I don't wear makeup, but I do have some red fingernail polish here, and it has a R in Braille, courtesy of a Braille tape that I put onto the side of it. Okay, so it's got an R for red. So and I abbreviated it, so I know what that R means. And if maybe if you have some makeup in your home and you have several of these different colors, you could have a Braille label on each one to identify what they are. You could have R for red, or you could have B for black, and so forth. Okay, so that makes things. I'm sorry, Shawn?
That's a nice finger polish.
Thank you. Yeah, if you could see my hands right now, Shawn, they're very well polished. I'm kidding. Or am I? Shawn will never know. Medications. Medications are especially important, right? So I have here some allergy medication. I have bad allergies. I have cats at home, and my cats cause me sometimes to sneeze a little bit, have some allergic attacks. So I take antihistamines. So what I did is I took Braille tape and I put on the top of the cap AN, antihistamine. Okay, AN for short. And the thing about keeping the caps is you can recycle these caps. Okay, you can recycle them. All right, you can recycle them, and so you can use them for the next time you have a new medication that you want to put something onto. Okay, let's see what else I have here in my repertoire. I have hot sauce. It's my favorite beverage. I'm kidding. I have hot sauce here. And what I did is I didn't use Braille tape, okay? What I did, took an index card, and you come across them quite easily, right? They're a common household item for the most part. You get a 3x5 or one larger folded in half. So I wrote on here with my Perkins Brailler, hot sauce, okay? And then I took a handy old rubber band and I attached this Braille label, this card stock. I attached it with a rubber band to the bottle. So now I know what it is, right? Hot sauce. Shawn, you don't like hot stuff, do you, or do you? Are you a hot and spicy guy?
I love hot sauce. Love hot sauce, salsa. Yeah, I'm all into the spice.
I have another spice here. Speaking of which, I've got some garlic salt, and I just took a Braille G, and I put it on top of the cap. And again, I can recycle that. Garlic salt, or I just have a G for garlic. But again, it's one of these things that you can kind of make your own. You don't have to be overly elaborate. Just whatever works best for you, right? Whatever works best for you. Also, what's really helpful is some of you out there may still have some old CDs laying around, right? May still have some old CDs laying around. And I don't know about you guys, but my challenge earlier in life was putting the right CD in the right case. Yeah, that always used to bother me. But now, courtesy of Braille labeling, I can keep track of these things. Now I have here a CD. Now I'm going to be honest with you. I have yet to put a label on it. But this is the Cars. Okay, it's a rock band. And what I'm going to do is put on here somewhere where it's obvious. I'm going to put on here a letter C, right? C for car. Or you could put cars. It's really whatever you would like to do, whatever makes it easier for you to identify it. Okay, so that's another advantage of knowing a little bit of Braille. How about you, Shawn? Have you found Braille to be useful in the home with some things?
Braille, not so much labeling, but the different Braille items that are out there, like Braille playing cards or
yes.
Braille games. I got Braille Monopoly here, and Braille. They recently came out with the Braille Uno, which this kind of piggybacks on what we're going to talk about on Thursday at noon. Great segue.
Yeah, exactly. I keep going back to this point, but if only you knew the letters of the alphabet, you could probably just get by with that to play a simple game of Uno, because we're only talking about, right, Shawn, is letters, a letter or two, right, on the card.
Yeah, so if you want, as long as you know the alphabet or A through J, then you know the numbers. And so that's certainly handy for like hotel room.
That's a great point. Yes, hotel rooms. We're going to get to that in a moment as well.
Hey, Kevin.
Now, yes,
Tracy has a question.
Who does?
Tracy.
Hey, Tracy.
Hey, I wanted to share that my cupboards in the kitchen, I have those sticks. Remember, I did those little.
Oh, that's right.
Labeled with my canned goods and.
Yeah. So if I remember right, you had a Braille label on the edge of your counter. I'm sorry, of your shelf, right?
Yes, with sticks, kind of like little bitty trim sticks that George had busted in half, sawed them so that they were just as long as the shelf, and that's it. And then I had
dividers, right?
yeah, as dividers, and my canned goods were in between those, and then I labeled each edge of the shelf there with all the different canned goods and things that I had up in my shelves. And I remember a time you called me when you were watching the kids and you said, "Where's the nacho cheese?" So it was up in one of those shelves and you found it. You were able to find it because it was Braille.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point.
And then my closets, I have sheets of paper that I've brailled the edge of BK for black, BL for blue, different colors that I have in my closet. So I have my clothes behind each one of those papers.
Oh,
Cut a
so
hole.
that's an excellent point, Tracy. So what you're saying is that you made dividers
Yes.
with Braille paper or
And they go
paper
on my rods. I
as
cut a hole
dividers,
and put them
right?
on my rods and put tape back on them so that they were on my rods. And then I can hang my hangers between all those colors.
Hear that, folks? That's an excellent idea, Tracy. Can I steal that from you?
Yes, you can.
Do I have to trademark you?
No, you don't. Will not copyright you.
Right. All right. So a few other things to keep in mind is one thing you can use with your Perkins Brailler are post-it notes. Post-it notes. And why that's helpful is if you wanted to label something, put a quick note on it, you could put it in your Perkins Brailler. In fact, I'm going to take my Perkins Brailler down again. I'm going to put it here in front. I'm going to take off one of these post-it notes I have on here. And I'm going to load it into my Perkins. Hopefully the Perkins Brailler is in view of the camera. I don't want you guys missing out on this exciting Braille footage here.
Before you start, Kevin, is there any way to lower your camera a little so that for those of us that can see? Perfect. Yes. Thank you.
I have to be sensitive to the retinally dependent as well. Sorry. All right, so I loaded into the Perkins Brailler a post-it note. And, you know, this post-it note, it could be anything, right? It could be anything that you want it to be. You know, you could have, you know, it could be a quick note. I don't know about you guys, but, you know, sometimes if you're blind and you're working in an office situation, it's not uncommon for sometimes people to hand you a piece of paper. and for me, only sight that I have left is that I can see that it's white. So it's just a nondescript piece of paper, right? So I had to find some way of distinguishing it. One way I can do that is I can take my Post-it note and I could just write on it, right? I could write something like check stub, you know. Let's see. Check stub. So, all right. So I just wrote on a check stub. Take that out. And then I have this note that I can attach because, you know, normally, I don't know if this is a sticky one, but I do have those. You can slap this onto that paper and then you can identify what it is. Or what you can do is just take the paper itself. Just take the whole paper that you've been handed, that nondescript white piece of paper, and load that into your Perkins Brailler, right? Turn that back around as I have it facing me originally. And then you can just write onto the paper what it is. And it could be something, you know, again, abbreviated, something very simple, right? Just something that will help distinguish that document from the other ones that you have. In fact, right now, I know in my office cubicle at work, I have probably a whole stack of papers that need to be went through and organized, shall we say. Come on, get it in there. if any of you guys have worked with Perkins Braillers long enough, you know that they're a little disobedient sometimes. They don't always want to load things. So just, I'm just putting a normal piece of paper into the Perkins and typing onto it what it is, right? So I'm going to put that aside. Now, one of the things too, I'll point out to you guys out there, this is a trick that I learned many years ago. So what if you want to make a label? What if you want to make a label of some kind and but you want there to be a copy? Want there to be a copy of what it is that you're making a label of. So you don't want to have to type it twice. Well, you can take maybe two Post-it notes here, for example, leave them together and put it into your Perkins Brailler and watch as it doesn't behave itself. Don't you hate it when the Perkins Braillers don't behave themselves, Shawn? Of course, Shawn, he uses a Braille display, so this is almost kind of antiquated to him. But again, I have two Post-it notes, one on top of the other, and I can make a note on there that I can put on more than one item. Okay.
That's so Stone Age.
Yeah, but it's so practical though. You got a lot of the practicality of it there. This is how Fred Flintstone. This is how he made carbon copies back in the day. All right. Now this also, that same trick works with Braille paper. You can take 2 sheets of 8x10 Braille paper, you can put it into your Perkins Brailler, and when you type, you'll make a copy of the other one, which was really handy when I was in college because I had to make copy after copy of Braille on a particular assignment. So I thought I would be Mr. Smarty Pants and make 2 copies so I didn't have to do the same writing more than once. Don't tell my professor so. All right, so I'm gonna put that aside for the moment. All right. Any questions so far? So let me review what I've discussed thus far. Okay, for labeling, we have a number of options. You have Dymo tape, which is a tape that you can use that has actually it's 2-sided. One side is the side that you write on. The other side is the side that you peel off to expose the adhesive that you would attach. You can create that 3 different ways. You can use a Braille tape holder, which is my preferred method because it's faster, it's more efficient, in my opinion. And everyone's got their own preference. Or you can use Mr. Slate and Stylus here, okay? And you could thread in some Braille Dymo tape through the slate and then type on it by way of a stylus, okay? And I'll take that tape out and see if it'll come out. It's in there pretty good. There it is. So this is the Braille Dymo tape for those of you who can't see, or can see rather, excuse me. Okay. All right. So now let me just here pitch an idea to you guys out there. Some of you out there may not know Braille, and you may be thinking, well, all of these alternatives out there, okay, for reading. We have the iPhone that's got voiceover that reads everything to me on the screen. You have JAWS, you have Bard, Kindle reading app, talking book program. You know, with all those options, you know, does that make Braille less relevant? You know, and what I would say is no. I understand if, you know, one is wanting to, you know, you use the Audible format to access literacy. I understand that because I do very much the similar thing. But it's also to say that Braille, if you know just a little bit of it, it can really help you in other ways, okay? By the way, for those of you who don't know, the last time I've heard this, there's percentage, and I think it may still be true, that about 90% of people who are blind or visually impaired know nothing about Braille. Okay, so if you were to learn just even a little bit, you'd be in that 10th percentile, that upper percentile. Shawn?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, and it's super handy. The more Braille, you know, me and you are both power Braille users, and especially using a Braille display like with an iPhone. Like during this whole meeting, I've been using my Braille display. You know, I might mute Zoom and then go and read an email or read a message, or just the possibilities are kind of endless when you're using a Braille display with multiple devices, and not everybody's hearing, you know, your speech in the background, so that's definitely a plus.
Yeah, and also it has applications that are very practical, and we've talked about a few of them today. Okay, the labeling. Ms. Tracy shared with some really excellent ideas for pantry and labeling of that, but also it's really helpful out in the community, because you will see Braille, and we talked about this briefly earlier, but you will see Braille in public places. You'll see it sometimes at a restaurant. They'll have the men and women's restroom signs labeled with Braille. Not all. There are some that do, and you know, it's a very helpful to know that distinction, right, Shawn? Because you know, you don't want to find yourself walking into the wrong restroom and finding yourself in a embarrassing predicament. Not never happened to me, or not lately.
Especially if you're at a Planet Fitness.
At a Planet Fitness.
You go in the wrong dressing, you know. Yeah. Anyway.
Right.
Not that that's ever happened to me or anything, but
no. It's never happened. No, it's happened to other blind people, right? Like I have this blind friend named Shawn, and he but so we, you know, it can help you to make that distinction. Also, you'll find it in elevators. You know, we've all been in situations when we're blind. We've been in an elevator by ourselves, and you kind of do that whole waiting in the elevator for somebody to come on to the elevator and tell you which floor you're on. And if you ask them, would you please push the button for me? Well, with Braille, the actual panels are numbered. They're actually numbered with Braille numbers on the side. Now, think about Braille elevators. They're a little tricky, because they're not one of them is the same that I've ever noticed. They're all, sometimes the odd numbers are on the left and the even numbers are on the right, or the even numbers are on the left. Shawn, have you noticed that? So I took some time, and I actually made a actual Braille simulated elevator panel here. For those of you who can see. And Rebecca, can you see that? Is that visible?
Yes.
Okay.
Raise it up just a little. Perfect.
All right. So I have here just an example. So each of these bumps here are simulated button for an elevator panel. Okay. And these here, I believe, I'm having to read Braille backwards here, are beginning with 1. So we have number 1, number 3, number 5, 7, and then we have an example of what you might encounter in an elevator when you're blind. They'll have an abbreviation for MA. Sometimes MA, then it's IN, but I just have MA here. And that's for main floor, main lobby. You'll find sometimes that there's a star in the elevator panel. That also, I think, means the lobby as well. But each one of these buttons, again, has a Braille number, has a Braille symbol next to it. It looks like kind of like a backwards L. and then a letter that's now a number. Okay, so that's an advantage of maybe learning a little bit of Braille. Is if again, you're in an elevator and you'll if you know the number system, you'll be able to identify what that floor is and go to it. Also, one last thing is I think it's really helpful is this pertains a lot to hotels. In hotels, they often have Braille numbers next to the floor, or next to the room, next to the room. And that is so helpful because before Braille, I would have no clue. I would have to walk around and eventually find some kind soul who could then direct me to my room. But given that there's Braille next to the door, you can count off and identify what something is. And I don't know about you guys, but I just think it's a very rewarding feeling to know that you don't need someone to help you in those situations, that you can problem solve and figure it out on your own.
Hey, another use of Braille in public would be Braille menus.
Oh, yeah, Braille menus. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's quite a few Braille menus in the restaurants around the Fort Worth area that we've done.
Yes, this is true. That's an excellent point, Shawn. Now, Braille menus is a little bit more advanced for certain Braille readers, but it's one of those things with Braille especially is, how much you put into it determines how much you get back. And it does require some work to keep consistent with it, to build that fluency. But I'll share with you guys a elevator story, a hotel/elevator story. A few years ago, I had gone to Washington, D.C. on behalf of the Lighthouse, and I was staying at a Marriott, and very, very, very nice hotel. It was very nice. It was very large too. It was like I was staying in a city that was indoors. But I knew my floor. I think it was floor 6, and I knew my room number. So I would get on the elevator, and I'd hit the correct button for the correct floor, and I'd get off, and I would go, and I would walk around, and I could not, for the life of me, find my room number. I read all the Braille on all sides of the wall, and it was funny because here I am standing in front of someone's door reading the Braille, and then they would open the door like oh, sorry, I'm just trying to figure out what room I'm at. And what happened is that the Marriott had not one but 2 towers in the same hotel. And so what I was doing is I was going to the right floor, but in the wrong tower. So I thought I was in some kind of weird parallel universe, but Braille helped me to figure that out, because I deduced that because I couldn't find my room, that there was something else going on. Okay. And so these tools, Braille, I always go back to this analogy, but as you go through life as somebody who's blind, you build for yourself a toolbox. And in that toolbox, you have a number of tools and techniques and technology, and that includes Braille. And so learning just enough Braille, in some cases, to read numbers and to read letters individually, even that can put you more in the driver's seat. Okay. All right. Well, I'm sure I've missed a couple of things here on my desk, on my table in front of me, but the time we have, why don't we open it up for some questions, comments? Maybe is there some things with Braille that you do that we don't do, like Miss Tracy, that you could share with us?
Questions?
Anyone? While y'all are thinking about questions, let us share with you an event we're having on Wednesday this week. So what do we have on this Wednesday, Shawn?
Very good. So one of our board members,
who is nationally known. His name is Michael Hinkson. Michael was on, I believe, like the 80th floor of the World Trade Center back in 2001 when it was infamous terrorist attacks. But he was on the 80th floor, and he went down all those flights of stairs with his guide dog of the time, Roselle. And so Michael is going to join us on Wednesday at 10 for our speaker series that we've been doing now for, gosh, month or two now.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
So you're here to tell his story and, share his experience. And
he's also very much involved in
that.
the National Federation of the Blind as well. Isn't that right,
Yeah.
Shawn? Yeah.
Yes.
And an author. So he's got a great story to share. He'll be with us on Wednesday this week.
We're really looking forward to this. So any, friends, family, anybody that wants to join, sighted, blind or not, I mean, this would be a great opportunity to come join us. And if any questions about that, just point them our direction. We'll get them connected.
And I think right now it's good to hear some inspiring stories. Yes, most definitely. Also, just keep something else in mind for next Wednesday. We have another couple of guest speakers. They are some ladies coming to us from the Talking Book Program, the National Library Service for the Blind. And they're going to be sharing with us resources about their agency, about talking books, but also resources related to COVID-19, how to connect with those through their program. And they're going to be with us Wednesday. What is the next date for next Wednesday? I don't have it in front of me. That's the 13th?
Yeah, it's the 13th.
13th. Thank you, Rebecca.
That was Alex.
Oh, sorry.
Fine.
Hey, speaking of Alex.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Speaking of Alex.
Alex have a stake in this whole series or something?
Yeah. What kind of steak we talking about? Like sirloin, tender cut?
It's a fillet. It's a fillet.
It's a
High
fillet. All right, go ahead, Alex.
So Tuesday and Thursday is our health and fitness, but we're also going to do a O&M tip on Tuesday. So for about 10-15 minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about orientation and mobility training and some things that you may be able to do at home as well to work on your skills and keep your skills up and working and up to the normal speed that they were prior to our stay-at-home orders.
Fantastic. Sounds like fun. Again, guys, any other questions about Braille or any other discussion?
Tracy has another question. Go ahead, Tracy.
Hey, you know, something though that I still don't understand about the Braille is that on some of those medicine containers, you know, where you put, you know, your, you have like 4 places to put medicine or 7 places to put medicine and you got 2 weeks or something like that. I don't get their Braille. It must be a sighted person who figured out that Braille because it just has the, I don't know whether it's saying AM or PM, but it's not an AM, it's not a PM or.
No, not. So who is doing this again? Who is doing this again?
Well, you know those, do you understand what I'm talking about? Those plastic containers that have little sections that you can put Monday's medicine, Tuesday's
Oh,
medicine.
yes. I have one of those, actually. I couldn't find it, but I have one of those, yeah.
I don't get their Braille. And I'm like, I can read Braille, but this is stupid. I don't get their Braille. And
right.
It's got to be a sighted dude or something that has.
Yeah, maybe somebody well-intentioned, but
yeah.
I have to share a funny Braille story. I was years ago, again, I was in Washington, D.C., and I went on a night tour of downtown D.C. It was a lot of fun, actually. And at the time, I had a coworker with me, Nancy, who was our community development person at the time. We went out to the Franklin Roosevelt Memorial, and since he had a disability, they made it so that it was a very disability-friendly memorial with great access for people in wheelchairs and so forth, and they even had Braille. So they had taken time to sculpt Braille letters into the monuments there in front of his statue. And when they debuted it, they went and they got a young lady who was blind, a young girl, I presume a student, and to let her read the Braille for the first time. And so she went there and she started reading the Braille, and she turned to them and said, it doesn't say anything. Because what had happened is that they made the Braille too big. So like the bumps for each individual letter were the size of an egg carton egg. So you would have had to have had the hands the size of the Incredible Hulk to be able to read the Braille.
Yeah.
But they meant well. They tried, but at that point they couldn't change it. It was it had been sculpted into granite that way, and I saw it, so it was pretty big. But I digress. All right. Huh?
Well,
Sorry, Shawn.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yes, Bob.
I have a couple of comments.
Yeah, sure.
One, that Braille Dymo tape gun, there's one advantage to that awkward, slow thing, and that's that you don't have to know Braille to use it.
That is
so
a good
so your
point.
helper can make your Braille labels,
That's a very
put them
good
where
point.
they go.
Right.
But that's about the only advantage I can think of that thing. I use a slate and stylus a lot. I used to have a Perkins Brailler. I had it most of my life, but I sold it to another blind man once I got happier with the slate. And I like to label important papers, mail. Like there's some things you really need to keep track of. Like you get your car title from your finance company after you pay it off. You need to keep that. You need to know where it is. Or that letter that comes from your doctor telling anyone who needs to know that yes, you are blind and you're not, and you're always going to be blind. I write directly on the envelope. Take the papers out, just put the envelope in the slate and write on the envelope.
Yes. That reminds me, Bob. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. I want to share one other thing with you guys that you can do. And Bob triggered this. So with Braille, what I've often done is if I have a card that I'm going to give to somebody, a greeting, a gift card or something, or not really a gift card, but a card, like a Christmas card or a birthday card or a get well soon card. There are a lot of them that just don't have Braille. And that's fine. What I do is I use my Perkins Brailler, and I'm actually going to do this right here in front of you guys, okay? So Rebecca, can you see what I'm doing right now?
Lower your camera some. A little bit more. There you go.
All right. So I have a card. I think it's a Halloween. Is it a Halloween card, Rebecca?
It is.
Okay. Not that it really matters. A card is a card. But what I do is I take the card, and as I'm holding it in front of me right now, it is in portrait. So I'm going to put it in landscape. I'm going to hold it so that it's sideways. And I'm going to feed it into my Perkins Brailler. I'm feeding it into my Perkins Brailler. I'm going to lock it in place, and I'm going to pull it in, okay, to the Brailler. And now I can type on it here any message that I want to somebody out there, somebody who's blind. Maybe I have a blind friend named Tracy or a friend named Bertha out there. Maybe I want to send them a card. So I could, write on that message something like, I hope you are doing well. Okay. All right. I'll take that out. I'm going to hold it up towards the camera there. Rebecca, can you see that?
I can.
Okay. So I wrote in there, I hope you are doing well. And it imprinted on there, nice, very crisp Braille. So you can make a card that's really, just if you're blind, says nothing, say something. And that's one of the reasons why I love the Perkins Brailler, because it does allow you to do a number of things like that, customized things. I've even seen people use them to make board games accessible. Right, Shawn? Have you seen that? Someone will type onto the cards in the game what they are, so they can be read later. I think I've done that once or twice, but only to an extent. Huh?
I think I've seen that around the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
Anthony, go ahead.
What's up, Anthony?
Yeah, Shawn and Kevin, I do have a comment regarding what happened to me. That's funny, but unless you're blind and you're living through it, you have no people. It doesn't. It's just comical. I'm an amateur radio operator, and I go to breakfast from time to time with the club on Saturday mornings. We went to a restaurant, and the gentleman I was with, I walked in with him, and people were just sitting down at tables, and I just walked up to a table, and I sat down, and I started saying good morning, hello, and this and that, blah, blah, blah. I didn't realize I sat down at the wrong table. And the guys were very comical. They said hello and everything else before they told me they didn't know who I was. But other than that, so that was one of my most embarrassing moments. But I do have two comments. One is, I know on the jamb of the elevator by the doors, they also have a little area with the number, I guess, and it's also in Braille, correct? On the side of the frame of the elevator?
Yeah, I want to say yes, but every elevator is different. Yeah, they're not uniform, because think about it. Not every building is uniform. They have different sizes, right. Different number of floors and such. Yeah. And
one more important question that I have, being I still have some somewhat vision, and I'm somewhat, I could be low vision or partially, whatever you want to classify me. Do you recommend people that can still see or will have trouble reading or seeing small stuff? Do you recommend them learning Braille?
Yes.
Could it help?
It could help, and really the point of this whole presentation, Anthony, is to put in front of you some ways that Braille could be practically used, where you have reading for literacy, and that definitely has its value, but also there are people out there who may not be wanting to use it for literacy, but more for tactile identification, right? And right. So if one wanted to learn enough Braille, the alphabet, for example, or just letters A through J,
and numbers,
right, that would then make you be in a position to know enough Braille to maybe when you find yourself in a situation out in public, like you're in an elevator and you don't know what floor to go, you can't read the numbers anymore, or maybe you need to find the women's restrooms, and luckily that place that you're at has it in Braille. But no, these things just kind of help you to have a little bit more control over your environment.
And I've already caught myself by almost walking into the wrong bathroom. But
right.
The other thing that I've also seen a few months ago, because I also followed the guy Sam from the Blind Life, he did a podcast about when he stayed at a hotel, and he went in there. He surveyed this hotel that he went in because he wanted to see how accommodating or how accessibility it was for people that is visually impaired and blind, versus they had Braille, versus you can figure out where you're located. When he got into his room, if they had it situated for somebody who is handicapped or visually impaired, that they can function, whether it's a menu, whether it's a TV, whether it's a telephone, whether it's the stuff that's on the door to give you your information, for like warnings or rates and this and that and the other thing, whether it's in large print or it's in Braille. And some of these places, they don't have any of that stuff for people in our situation. And things like that he was trying to bring up to these different chains and so forth, that you guys, there needs to be some type of standard for people like in our situation that they need to accommodate. Does that make sense? Because I'm sure everybody has come across those situations that aren't made for somebody who's blind or hearing impaired or both.
One thing I'll say that I wish is that there was some kind of, and maybe there's regulations on this or not, but like they'll put Braille signs on the wall, but how are you going to know it's there if you can't see it? So
right,
it seems like there should be some kind of, I don't know, regulation like that they have to follow. It's got to be at this certain
like some type of standard.
Right. Yeah, it does seem to move. Let me just provide you guys with just a quick tip. If you find yourself in a situation, you're at a hotel, maybe you're by yourself for whatever reason, and there isn't Braille on or next to the door. When you leave the room, you want to have confidence that you can find the same room again, that you can get back to it, right? So what you might do is take a clothes hanger, hang it on the outside of the door, and close the door, so that when you come back, presumably the door with the clothes hanger on it, it'll be your door. Okay? That's just kind of a quick fix.
That's providing that the
oh, I know where you're going.
Keepers, they don't take it.
I know where you're going. It doesn't have. It's not guaranteed to succeed, but it might get you by. Especially like if you think about in the evening, right? House cleaners or the room cleaners,
another guest.
They come in the morning. So, but for what it's worth, something to consider. So good question, Anthony. Thank you.
Just put things in different perspective for us.
Yeah.
But thank you.
You bet.
Kevin, we have one more question from Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, and this is a response to Anthony there. And I stole this from NFB, but for me, the big decision maker is about whether or not you should learn Braille is if you find yourself frequently wanting to read something, but you don't read it because reading is just too difficult for you, then it's time to learn Braille. And in extenuating circumstances, if you have another disability, like you have difficulty, you have poor feeling in your fingers, or it's more difficult for you to learn something new than for most people, then the decision is not that simple. But for most of us, if you find yourself wanting to read something, but you don't because reading is too hard for you, then yeah, it's time to learn Braille.
Thank you, Bob.
And I'm in that same boat as I'm in that same boat you just brought up. I do have neuropathy in my hands. So whenever we get back to normal and I get an opportunity to go down to the Lighthouse of the Blind and sit down with Kevin, I am going to try to see if I can read Braille with my fingers and see if I can figure out what I'm doing. But
sure, we could do a Braille assessment and see if that's something that would be appropriate for you. And honestly, a big part of this spiel today, this presentation, it's kind of a hook to see, just to put in front of somebody, what are some ways Braille can benefit me, both practically and in terms of literacy. Okay, so when things in the world change, and hopefully they'll change sooner than later, and we can do some one-on-one training. For those of you listening to me, I'll be happy to sit down with you and we could have a class. I've had classes in the past with multiple people, and those can be fun. So it just really depends, but hopefully this has been helpful. There's probably a lot more that I didn't cover, but hopefully what I did cover was helpful.